Hey guys, Matt Chaos here. I just finished running a Diablo session in D&D, and it went very well, but I ran a session with the same group in a different game, a one-shot, and I was struck by how different the party dynamic is, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. Specifically, what a big effect the premise of the party coming together will have on the party dynamic for the rest of the game. Pretty much like that, the most influential, the biggest thing you could do to set the party dynamic is what circumstances they meet under. Everything else is going to be slightly steering away from that. But what circumstances they meet in, that's going to set the tone for the rest of the game. So there's two ways that you could primarily do this, and I've noticed that there's good and bad with each. But let's take the first one. The first one, this is the classic. You all are already friends. Like you have your characters. This is the first time you're actually playing with them, but you just say you're friends already. Like you're good friends, and we don't need to get into the whole like how did you meet or why are you together or what's why would you be friends with this one weird dude. You're just friends already, and you're gonna work together and just play with each other the way you would play, the way you communicate in real life with the way you hang out in real life. Just do that, but with your characters. And I've seen that it actually works wonders. It's like magic. Like you put these people in a tavern, people who've never used these characters before, and they could just talk for 4 hours. There's no awkwardness. There's no scrounging for words or like awkward silences. People don't need to work to fill up the dialogue. It just all flows very naturally and smoothly. And they trust each other. People have the freedom then to roleplay and do questionable things. Like how in every group there's someone that enjoys doing something with their character that may be like they enjoy doing something not optimal or like risky because that's like the character's decision. Well, in a group that everyone is friends, they can do that, and then the other character's reaction is usually to be like concerned or or just like kind of accept it, and they'll roll with it. And in character too, they'll build on what's happening, and you'll get something that's better than before. Whereas what you don't want is somebody try something and then everybody else tries to like cancel it or doesn't even like play into it or build off of it. And what you get is kind of a stalled scene because people will just butt heads and nobody will want to be the one to, like, give me the book. No, I'm keeping it. Okay, well, then they just go back and forth forever. Whereas if they're friends, it'll probably turn into something else. Like they'll make a wager to decide who's going to keep the book or make a bet. The point is, it just creates lots of smooth role-playing opportunities and reactions from the players, even if they're not. And I'm not trying to say this is like specific players or specific groups, because this happens every time I've tried it anywhere. Every time. So that's one way. The other way is you introduce them as strangers in the beginning, and then they go from there. So either this is the first time they're meeting because of a quest, like Gungeon Rockseekers brought them together and introducing them, and they're going to work together to go find a mine, or they're all mercenaries together, or like they just happen to run into each other as the game goes on. This is usually what you actually want, because having people meet up as friends already is feels kind of cliche and trite, because you're skipping all of the fun origin story stuff. You're skipping how did they know each other, the process of bonding, developing trust. In this other approach, though, where you're having them actually play through it, you get to have all the role-playing opportunities of them slowly opening up to each other and learning to trust each other and deciding like, oh, well, this guy is an elf and I'm a dwarf and I hated elves, but now I see after he's covered my butt so many times that he's not so bad. So you get to see in theory, an organically developing relationship in the party. Now here's the problem. I've never seen this actually happen in practice. Maybe like once. But what always actually happens instead is people just decide, if they're strangers, whatever they were when they were originally meeting, that's it. Like it's like players only have one setting And if they, this guy is my enemy, alright, well, he's my enemy forever now. Doesn't matter how many times the other character saves their life, or heals them, or does anything, it doesn't matter. Nothing changes, ever. So, that leads to this, like, frustrating situation where they are always kind of unless everybody in the party is already very, very congenial. If you have people with some rivalries or frictions, those things never really develop, and then you end the you can go play through the entire campaign and it'll be like they just met. And you end up with these cases where there's nothing really like keeping them together. Like the only reason they're together is because of the quest, and as soon as the quest or some immediate danger that's threatening to kill them is gone, they all split up and go their separate ways and don't really care about the other people, or they turn inward and treat it like a bunch of one-player games all happening at once. This is pretty, like, to me, this is awful, because you're getting the worst of both worlds. You're not having the party dynamic of being friends, and you're missing out on the development from before that. Especially if, like, let's say you end a campaign with this group, they'll just wander off, and it'll be like nothing happened. So for me, when you put it like this, it's, in practice, it doesn't actually work out very well. So with that taken into account, I would actually, I'll take introducing each other as friends, because not doing it never really goes anywhere. Let me give you another example. If you're already friends and you have some, people like to put together parties of like weirdo characters, like, an Underdark gnome and like a tiefling, and like maybe somebody picked a drow for some reason. If you're already friends, all of the questions about like why are they together, and why does a drow trust like a tiefling or whatever, that's all not even on the table. Like, figure it out later, or like they just assume that that they trust each other. That's the case. Whereas when you start with the origin story method, or like using somebody's backstory, all of a sudden this stuff matters a lot, and you can't very loosely insert somebody into the party. You have to very, very carefully plan it, because if you don't, and this makes it very hard in like actual day-to-day running a game, because most people at least I don't have time for this. I can't predict every single possible way that this one character's backstory is going to intersect with everybody else's backstory. But then if they show up and the party doesn't like this new person, now you're kind of stuck, because they're going to be at odds. They have no reason to like accept them. I mean, you could accept them anyway in a sort of out-of-character way, because we're playing a game, and just accept them. And a lot of people do that, but anybody who's trying to roleplay like an actual, like, in-depth character, you're not going to see that happen. So basically, what you end up with is a bunch of stalled character growth arcs that don't go anywhere, and you just kind of have people who are awkwardly standoffish with each other. And I'm saying that not for one group, but just in general. Anytime you have this. So with that, I would probably from now on, I'm probably just gonna go with the "you're all friends" option, unless it's like a really good role player and I know they can pull it off. There's some people who can just do it, or they have like a certain charisma themselves that like they can just show up into the group and everybody will accept them. But that's kind of very dependent on the person. It might not be that way. My only problem with introducing people as friends is, okay, when the party itself is introduced together as friends, that works. But what about when you have new characters? Is every single character from now on always going to be like everybody's best friend, and you're just happening to run into them? It feels very contrived. But on the other hand, maybe that's better. It's actually harder to mix the two options. Like, let's say you have a party that's old friends, and then you don't want to have every single new character be an old friend, so you introduce them the other way with like a backstory and related to their quest. Well, now the party is already all old friends, so they don't really have a reason to get super like friendly with this newcomer, because whenever some character is going to have like a character moment with someone, they'll just go to talk to their old friend that they know. Why would they talk to this stranger? And so what you end up having is this new character kind of just stays on the edge of the boundaries while everybody else sticks together. It's almost like a clique. And they never get their in. usually the way that you would get your in is the dungeon master has to force something on the party to basically, like, something almost kills everyone, but then the newcomer saves the day, and now they have a chance to bond. But then a lot of times what happens is, like I said, once the players get set on their one path, they're never gonna, they don't seize that opportunity. They just go, okay, well, thanks, but now we're back to, business as usual. So I haven't been able to figure out a solution for that, except very, very deliberately planning or putting the party in situations where they have to work together, and then hoping that the players themselves can just make it work. It's not really in the dungeon master's hands. If the players don't take the opportunities you give them, then the party is never going to feel right. And that's true for a lot of D&D stuff. Like the dungeon master, people think the dungeon master is responsible for the whole game, but that's not true. A good DM can't save a bad group of players. It's the players that the DM is the one who gives them the platform. It's the DM is the one giving them the stage to play their concert, and the players are like a band. If the band is no good, it doesn't matter what stage they're on. It's gonna suck.